Okay, hi, good afternoon, everybody. I am so excited to share some work with you today. And Lisa, thank you. I really enjoyed your presentation. So I have a bunch of questions. I wish we had a little more time. Um, but anyway, I'm Laura Warner. I am an extension professor in the Department of Agricultural Education and Communication, and I'm a social scientist. And I'm really interested in behavior change, why people adopt things or don't adopt things, such as the practices and technologies that are being developed by UF and other land-grant universities all over the country. This is a collaboration with Vashti Tatman, who is an extension PhD student in our department. And this is part of a USDA funded 5-year SCRI grant that we're working on. We're coming into year 3 of this grant, and it's LEAP is what we affectionately know this project as, but it's all about looking at labor efficiency, automation, and production in nursery and greenhouse operations across the country. So our colleagues are more bench and horticultural and agricultural scientists. They're identifying best practices for automated nursery technologies in nurseries and greenhouses. We represent the social science piece. And so we're interested in how people feel about these new technologies, whether they're interested in adopting them, whether they're resistant, and so on. So the piece that I'm talking with you about today is related to irrigation timers among this audience. Um, so irrigation timers are really one of the most basic and widespread nursery technologies. We've got all sorts of levels of potential automation you can have, and we kind of see irrigation timers as one of the simplest that you can adopt. Now, our USDA grant is really focused on addressing labor issues, and so we're certainly tuned into the
Hey,
fact that irrigation
Laura,
timers.
let me interrupt you for a
Oh,
moment.
yes, yes.
You're no longer in presentation view.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
thank you for telling me. It
you're
still shows
welcome.
as
I just don't
presentation.
want
It still shows that way on my screen. Let's see what we can do. Um,
that you're back now. Thank you.
oh, okay. You can see it. Okay. All right. Thanks. So, some of our team's research has shown that about under 60% of firms have adopted this pretty basic technology. So there's a lot of opportunity to save labor. And those of you who know me know I'm normally working in a water conservation space. So I'm certainly interested in the fact that irrigation timers can save water. They can also increase general efficiency as well as plant quality. So our team is asking, why is adoption not reaching its full potential? So what can we do in extension and research to improve adoption of these timers? So we look at behavior change in kind of a really granular way, and if you've heard me talk about behavior before, you've probably heard me talk about stages of change. But we like to look at behavior as happening in kind of incremental steps rather than it being like a black and white, you either do or you don't. So people tend to move through these 5 changes relative to any innovation or technology. So they go from this first stage where they're not thinking about it. This applies to anything. So if you're not interested in irrigation timers, you can think about it in terms of anything you work on in extension. But so people may go from not even thinking about irrigation timers to the second stage where they're contemplating. They're considering, but action is not going to happen anytime soon. If someone recognizes the benefits and think it's something that would be good for them and their operation, they may move into this third stage, which is preparation. After preparation, someone actively adopts, in this case, irrigation timers, And finally, ideally, people get to this maintenance phase where they're permanently using this technology. You can exit the process at any time. You don't necessarily go all the way through. And what's really important is that it's the way you see the barriers and benefits associated with the change that pushes you through these stages. So think about your extension clients and how they perceive this technology. Okay, so we wanted to first understand these barriers and benefits. So what we did is a series of interviews, and we interviewed growers who were 18 years of age or older who did not use irrigation timers. And I have to say, I've done a lot of research in my time at UF. This is one of the most difficult audiences to recruit. We had a really hard time finding folks that were available and willing to talk and also didn't use irrigation timers. But they had to be decision makers. They had to be able to talk us through the process. And we asked them about their operation, about how they currently irrigated. And we had perception questions about how they viewed um, the irrigation timers and the barriers and benefits. So after coding the data, what they shared with us, we identified four key benefits and six key barriers. So the benefits were reducing overall water use, reducing an operations labor requirements, allowing growers to remotely manage irrigation, allocating labor across many different tasks. Those are all the benefits. And then barriers were the cost of irrigation timers, the return on investment seems a little daunting or maybe not enough to some. Preventing growers from using their expertise. We know this is a really like hands-on audience who likes to be really involved, and that could take away from that. Some folks thought that this technology really needs to be kind of babysat, and that negates the potential labor savings that they could receive. Um, some talked about requiring infrastructure changes to install this technology, and others talked about the training and the expertise they needed to get in order to operate this technology. So, so these are the barriers and benefits that would, based on how someone perceived them, guide whether people moved into adoption or not. And we used these benefits and barriers in a nationwide survey. We used computer-aided telephone interviewing, or CATI. And so we used a firm that actually called growers. I've never used this methodology before. It was really interesting. It was still, they had just an incredible time recruiting folks. They were able to get folks a little over 100 from California, Florida, Connecticut, Oregon, Washington, some of the key states that we were really hoping to reach. Um, but they were supposed to deliver 150, and they couldn't do it. They had such a hard time. So anyway, 66% of the people that they spoke to had adopted, so slightly higher than what we were expecting, but not too far off. And we through this survey we identified the stage of change each grower was in, and we quantified their perceived barriers and benefits. So um, this across your screen right now is the four benefits I mentioned, and this is the perceived strength that that folks indicated they saw with irrigation timers. So you can see kind of across the top that lavender pinky color. That's when people said it was a very strong benefit, and then the green is a good benefit. So you can see across all four of these, there's a pretty strong recognition of the benefits for all four of these. Let's see. So I do want to draw your attention to the allocating and operations labor. We'll across tasks. We'll come back to how these like change over the stages, but this is one that doesn't play the same as the others. I think I just came out of presenter view again. Um, and then this is the barriers. Sorry, it's thundering really loud right here. Um, this is the barriers, and you can see that there's kind of a lot more variability in how people responded for these. But if you look across the bottom, that green color, those are the items that people said were not a barrier at all. So if you look at that third one, more than 50% of folks said preventing growers from using their expertise, that's not a barrier at all. So maybe the least of their concerns. And then that very last one, the requiring additional training to operate, that one plays a little funny too. And so what we did, I just showed you benefits, and now I'm showing you barriers. What we did is we created a mean value so we could kind of track the net barriers and benefits over these stages. And from a behavior stage change standpoint, this is really interesting to me. Um, so across the bottom of this image you see on your screen, we have those 5 stages of behavior change. So on the left, that's like where those are the people who are not thinking about adopting irrigation timers. As we go through those 5 stages, on the right, we have action. Those are the people who are like just adopted. And then maintenance. These are people who have adopted permanently. Um, in the middle, we have this preparation stage. And so this is people who are like right now getting ready to adopt very soon. And this is so interesting because it really plays exactly how it should in terms of the theory. That blue line is your benefits. And um, they begin to exceed the perceived barriers as people are moving into this action stage. So you see before that, the perceived barriers, that pink line, is greater than the perceived benefits. So this is kind of like sort of real life demonstration of how weighing those pros and cons are really influencing whether people adopt or not. I mentioned those couple things that played funny here in the middle in this preparation stage. So remember, one of the benefits was allocating labor across tasks. So that's part of this blue line in the middle. That one, people rated really low there. So people who are getting ready to adopt are not seeing that benefit. I'm not sure why, but there's something interesting going on. And then in the peak of the barriers there in the pink, we saw the training needed, that barrier that had a really high peak there. So we could see that people are concerned about the barriers across the board, but really concerned about that training. So perfect time for extension to come in. I don't know why this keeps turning off. I apologize. Um, so this is kind of a snapshot into the staged behavior process and what our extension clients are perceiving as they navigate adopting a technology. So, as I showed you, those perceived benefits are beginning to outweigh the barriers as people start to adopt. And that benefit of allocating labor hits a real low during, right before adoption. The and those barriers, remember, we saw that peak at preparation right before adoption. So we think that this explains why we have less than optimal adoption. And we found this in our research, but this applies to a lot of other contexts that people who are planning to adopt experience the greatest concerns right before they do so. So if you think about an extension, a lot of times we kind of tune into behavioral intention and we use that as a measure, and it is extremely valuable. But there's a lot of space between that intention and the adoption and the eventual permanent decision. So a lot to really think about here. And let's see, the concern over training needed to adopt the timers is, again, really important at preparation. Um, let's see. And so growers in those early stages, either not thinking about irrigation timers or just starting to think about them, they're not ready for traditional action-oriented approaches. So something to really think about in how we do our extension programming is, when we're delivering these programs that are like how to do this, they're very action focused, we might not be meeting those growers in the early stages um, by giving them the support that they need to get to those later stages. So, some things we think would be helpful is to kind of look at extension programs to see what stages we are serving and maybe where we could serve some of the stages that are not being served. And those in the pre-contemplation stage, again, they don't need to be asked to take action just yet, but things like raising awareness of this technology and really focusing on giving them an understanding of the benefits can be really valuable. And the folks that are starting to think about irrigation timers or preparing to do so, they should also be given support in understanding the benefits, but we also want to start coming in and helping to remove or reduce the barriers that they see to sort of help them move through that process. And the growers in the preparation stage, getting ready to adopt, they also need to be provided with concrete action steps. This is where they're ready to take action and adopt. And things like building their confidence in using the technology, having them commit to doing so. This is where like a lot of our traditional extension programming kind of already lives, I think. And those who have adopted can be supported as they transition into this maintenance or permanent adoption phase. Um, a lot of times, I've had this happen many times in my extension career where we're like asking people if they plan to adopt something, and everybody in that room has already done it. So that's our maintenance group. That's our group that's in that fifth stage. That doesn't mean they're not a good audience, but we want to look at them differently. We want to provide positive reinforcement to make sure they continue the use of that technology, provide ongoing technical assistance, continued social support, and ideally, this is our group that can serve as advocates or peer mentors for other growers who are in those early stages. So, whatever program area you work in, these are the people that you want as your volunteers, that you want, to kind of help you to get in with your audience and the people you may not already be reaching. So, just a little snapshot of our work. I failed to mention I think we have 11 different institutions across the country here. The big ones are University of Tennessee, NC State, USDA, Oregon State. And again, this is the LEAP project. You can learn more about this project at nurseryleap.com, and then our contact information is here. So thank you so much for your attention.